to get a better understanding of the topic. And now I am going to go ahead and pass the time over to Ranjit to present today's topic. You should be able to share your screen now, but you are still muted.
Hi, good morning, Leila. Thank you so much for that introduction. Please let me know if my screen is now shared. Do you see a blue Azure or do you see a command prompt?
I see the blue Azure.
Okay, that works fine. That's the screen which I wanted to share. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Saturday morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time zone you are connecting to this webinar to. My name is Ranjit Singh, and we will be going through a quick overview of this masterclass for AZ-104 Azure Administrator Associate exam. So we are not going to target each and every component, each and every concept which is part of this AZ-104 exam, but we have cherry picked some of the important stuff which everyone is interested into. Every organization is looking forward to go and play around these foundation build services, which allow organization to either build their new solutions over the cloud or to go and migrate their workload to the cloud as well. I'm just sharing a PPT. Let me know if this is something which has been there. So
It looks
can you
great.
see this? Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, Leila. Okay, here we are, starting with this masterclass for AZ-104. I'll just start with a quick introduction of mine, although you have already heard about that. I have been into cloud industry for almost like 7-8 years now, having a specialization on Microsoft Azure. Did work with other vendors, did work with other technologies as well, had some hands-on over servers and networking, CCNA and Cisco and Network Plus, and then gradually moved to Microsoft technologies and now specialized for Azure, SharePoint, and Office 365. And mostly these technologies are cloud-based technologies. Worked with different roles from desktop support engineer to SharePoint lead to Azure consultant and the migration assistant. So I've been working on different roles, providing organization or helping organization to take their workload assessment and then moving it back to the cloud environment if everything is as per their own project requirements. Here we are about the course. Let's get more detail about the course. So this is all about Azure Administrator role. The masterclass is designed as well as the AZ-104 exam that targets cloud administrator. And who is these cloud administrator? What are the roles of these cloud administrator? If this is the first time you are ever hearing about AZ-104, or if you have been working over the cloud and you are planning to get your certifications being done to prove your knowledge, to prove your expertise over a topic, this is something which a cloud administrator do into their routine jobs, and this is what they manage into the environment. So they take the responsibility of making sure that the storage, the network, the compute, the three core service offering over the cloud, we also call them the foundation services. uh, this is something which has been managed by the cloud administrator. So you take the responsibility of creating the compute in terms of virtual machines, maybe in terms of containers or Kubernetes, and then of course you will be working with the scenarios where the organization is going to deploy multiple resources over the cloud, and those resources need to communicate to each other. The networking is something which is a requirement for all those solutions. You need networking not only for a cloud-based solution, but maybe a company is having a hybrid deployment. You need your resources to get connected back to on-prem workloads as well. You still require networking in the background. Or another case, organization, we are talking about a big giant organizations who have their workload being distributed over multi-cloud deployment. You have different cloud vendors available back to you, and for sure you will be having requirements to make the integration between these multiple cloud to get the best of their offerings, as well as minimizing your cost, optimizing your performance. This is something which you try to achieve, and networking is still required there. And you are doing something with the networking, you are doing something with the compute, you definitely need a storage in the background. You need storage to go and take backups. You need storage to go and save data. You need storage for the logging, for the monitoring. So these are the core services which are there on the cloud, and this is what is being expected by the cloud administrator, that they should have a fair understanding about these core services. And not to forget, everything revolves around authentication and authorization. So being a cloud administrator, you should be able to handle some basic requirement in terms of authentication, authorization. If you have your hands on over Azure Active Directory on premise, your migration journey, your understanding to the cloud identity management solution becomes even much more simpler, much more easier, because we are having the same identity management solution over the cloud. The way it has been architected, it's different. The protocols being used is different, but the objective still remains same. The identity management solution, having users created, having groups created, taking those role-based access control in place, uh, de- allowing delegation to the Azure management. This is what is identity management all about. So cloud administrator do work with these foundation services, and they do make sure that the whole life cycle of the resources being created, managed, monitored, deployed, removed. It is the responsibility of the cloud administrator to maintain that whole life cycle for the resources. And this is what the course actually targets. We have 11 modules, and we start from the very basics of what is portal, what is Azure portal, why, what are the different options to go and interact with these services over the Azure. And then we take it to the last level, where we talk about, if you have everything deployed into the Azure environment, how you can go and do the monitoring of your solution, how you can make sure that in terms of performance, in terms of events, in terms of logs, you are able to monitor your resources, you are able to maintain the benchmark performance for your applications. And if something goes wrong, you should have a proactive approach to go and fix it, rather than being reactive in the solution creation or in troubleshooting. It's always good if you can have a proactive alert system in place, if you have some automation in the background to go and fix some of the uh, fixes which may go and allow the workload to get in business again. This is what we discuss into the course. So they do interact with the end users. They take the request of the end user. Maybe you have your service now, and you may have your portals through which users submit their request of having a virtual machine being created, having a website being provisioned, having some DevOps requirement. You will be the person who is going to be responsible for managing these requests, taking these inputs, provisioning that resource into the environment, doing a capacity planning, monitoring the ongoing solutions being deployed into the environment, and making sure that the vendor, who is of course Microsoft, and third party solutions, most of the organization do have their third party solutions. They have third party cloud based solutions which are available, and they want to integrate the identity management, they want to integrate the monitoring systems, they want to integrate the diagnostic, they want to do some data exchange, some workload migrations to be done in the background. You will be responsible to go and manage these services and do these communication, maintain that uh, configuration for the resources into the environment. Also, there are multiple ways to go and interact with Azure. It depends how long you have been working on Azure. If you are just starting your journey with Azure, you may have gone for AZ 900, and now you are planning for AZ 104, and you are targeting Azure Architect. Of course, if you're starting with your Azure journey, you always love to go and see that visually how it has been configured into the environment. So Azure portal is something which you will be looking out for, being a cloud administrator. If you would be a developer, if you will be a maybe a DevOps or security, then you may have a different set of tools available to go and give your best for the role you have been assigned for. But if you are working with the administrator role, portal is first step to go and start with your Azure journey. And as you become more proficient in managing your services over the cloud, you switch from portal to a command line interface, And yeah, the next target is obviously you will be managing a lot of resources which have been deployed into the environment. So you will be looking out for some tools like infrastructure as a code based deployments, template based deployments, which helps you to go and do the deployment more easily, more consistently, faster, removing all human errors into the environment. And of course, it becomes more efficient because you can go and schedule these tasks. You can go and make sure that there are some triggers over which you can respond, and you can do the resource deployment based on the business requirement, based on the business changes, business triggers. This is what the cloud administrator role is. And it takes a lot of information. It needs a lot of service introduction to go and do all these tasks in the organization. And that's what the course targets. Let's talk about the session, because we usually this AZ 104 training is for 4 days. We have 32 hours to go and understand these aspects into a different level of depth. But for this masterclass, we will be just taking into some consideration for the identity management, governance and compliance, Azure administration, and Azure networking. So we have picked up four main areas of configuration, planning, and of course not to forget about the governance and compliance. Any deployment you are supposed to do in the organization, any deployment you are supposed to plan in the organization, you need to make sure that it is as per the governance and compliance requirement. So we are going to target these four core areas of our configuration, starting from identity management to governance and compliance to Azure administration, and of course talking about the Azure networking, because as we discussed, networking is something which every organization would be interested into, to make sure that in a different configuration, in a different environment which is going to be built over the cloud, you should be able to communicate from your on-prem, from other clouds, and maybe some third-party integrations which you are planning to use as a hybrid model of deployments. So we are starting with the identity management, and we'll be taking care of some of the core configuration which happens inside this deployment environment. So let's talk about the identity management. Now, this is something which you may have seen into your searches over the browsers, that Microsoft Azure Active Directory, AAD, we call it Azure Active Directory. It's one of the leader in identity management solution. This is from the Gartner, from the November 2020 survey, which have been identified. So we are the partner organizations for the identity management, and we are leaders in providing these identity based solutions. We do these authentication, millions of authentication per day throughout the globe, making it available for all the global clients. And that's what the Azure Active Directory helps you with, a globally distributed infrastructure, making sure you have your SLAs in place, making sure you have flexibility to integrate your business to business solutions. You have a flexibility to go and configure it for a business to client based deployment model. You have flexibility to choose different SKUs. You have different plans available. You identify what is my business requirement, what is the requirement of a specific profile, and based on which you can go and ask for a different licensing scheme, providing different feature set for the users. For some of the users where you want to have governance and compliance, where you want to have identity management, you may be applying for P2 licenses. If it is a simple user management which you need, you can go and use the free SKU which is available for the Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory provides a cloud-based suite of identity management capabilities: your user creation, group assignation, application management, registering of your application, custom domain. There are so many features, and of course the identity protection, the reporting, the telemetry, identifying any vulnerabilities into the environment in terms of user risk, sign-in risk, having uh, conditional access into place, providing just-in-time access. So these are some of the features which most of the enterprise organizations are looking for, to make sure that one of the core resource which is being placed in every organization, the the identities, the humans who are working in the organization, who interact with all the resources. You are able to provide them the flexibility of using different devices. You are able to provide them password-less environment to log in into to log into the networks, and also maintaining the security aspect, also maintaining the governance and compliance requirement for the organization. So making it easy for the authenticated users to work in the regulated environment of business, and making sure that the attackers are being stopped at the very beginning of their attack. This is what we target for the identity management solutions. So this is what the Azure Active Directory helps. The Azure Active Directory helps the organization employees sign in and access the resources. What type of resources will the identities be accessing? These resources can be internal, which is hosted on Azure. These resources can be something which is on premise, which you can go and use proxies, you can use federations, and the resources can be something which is a third party solution. You may have purchased some solutions from maybe SAP, from maybe Salesforce, maybe any CRM solutions you have deployed, and you want your identity management solutions to go and provide access to those solutions also. These are the capabilities with the Azure Active Directory. Provides application management. You can go and publish your own applications from your on-premise, from your cloud, or maybe from your third-party solution providers. You can take the authentication in place. You create these identities which are available inside the Azure Active Directory, or identities which you can go and make an invitation to. These are referred as your guest user identities. So you can always go and ask someone to help you out into your deployments, ask someone to go and create some custom solutions for you. We are talking about a partner based model. So you may have some external consultant who are going to help you with maybe a machine learning deployment which is going to happen, or a custom web application which you are going to prepare in the organization. You can use your Azure Active Directory to take authentication for those external users as well. The guest based identity management and role based access control is the capability of Azure Active Directory. Also provides the hybrid identity management, the identities which are there in your on-premise. You may be having your environment running for years now. You have hundreds of users created in your Active Directory. You have hundreds of devices which are already registered into your environment. And now you are looking for the opportunities over the cloud, because cloud is scalable, cloud is highly available, cloud provides you economies of scale, cloud provides you the best of the technologies available in different segments. uh, Cloud provides you a global footprint. These are some of the reasons why organizations are moving to the cloud. And of course, to harness these goodness, you require a solution to help you into an integration of your on-premise and the cloud-based deployment. You can't move everything from your on-premise to the cloud overnight. You will be working into a hybrid model. You will be deploying some of your workload over the cloud, some of your workload on premise, and then you need your on premise identities to be available for the cloud based resources as well. And there is a hybrid identity management solution requirement. Azure Active Directory provides you tool, Azure Active Directory Connect, the tool which helps you to take your identities from the on-prem to the cloud, with password, without password, or just to make a ADFS based deployment happen for you. So there are multiple ways you can go and work into the hybrid identity management. And of course, based on your business needs, you are going to have a different Active Directory implementation requirement, the different feature set which you may be interested into, to go and look out for the identity based solution management. You have your free license, you have Microsoft 365 license, you have P1 license, you have P2 license. And based on these licenses, the feature set which are available for the users are going to change. You pay more, you get more features, you get more reporting, you get more auditing information for the users, you get more governance and compliance capabilities to handle your identities from on-prem as well as the identities which you are going to move to the cloud or you're creating in the cloud. There could be different possibilities. You create identities on the cloud or you move your identity from on-premise to the cloud. That's referred as hybrid. And this is what the identity management looks like. I'll go back to the portal just to give you a quick review of this information. And here we are. This is the portal. You go to Azure portal by clicking on portal.azure.com. You log into your subscription, and this is a portal based management available to you. You see everything in a UI. Someone who is very new, you want the ease of browsing through the portal. You want ease to get more help option when you are new to this environment. You want help to be available for different options. You need documentation which should be readily available when you are struggling to look out for some information, or you need to get more details about some of the options. This is the portal which can help you with all those aspects of new user requirements. When you first time log into the portal, you land to a page, and there you'll be able to create resources. You'll be able to see all the resources which have been deployed into your environment. You'll be able to see all the services being offered by Microsoft into different categorization. You are looking for compute services. We have compute services categorized for you. We have network services available. We have storage. We have web, app, containers, databases. All the services have been categorized. So it's easy for anyone who is starting to work on the cloud to go and look out for the information. And maybe you are very new, you know about these terms, but you have no clue about what this service is all about. Just hover your mouse over these options. You're going to get some preview information there, what this service talks about. Where can you go and find more detailed information about these services? Just go to any service and you'll be able to get these learn more option. Click over it. It takes you to the detailed discussion about the service and its offering. The same UI which is available on the portal. Now you are able to see the details of your topic, and you can look out for, hey, I was looking for Azure SQL and I have no clue what is the difference between Azure SQL and Azure SQL databases, and maybe I'm looking for managed instances or something like that. Yeah, you have those documentation available now. So looking at the portal, it is easy for you to navigate through the services, and it's even easier for you to go and get more help to get more details about the services also. What we are looking for is an Active Directory solution. So let's type AAD, and here we are, Azure Active Directory, a identity management solution which is available back to us. Let's click over the Azure Active Directory. What's there? It gives you a tenant. As soon as you go and subscribe to Microsoft Azure services, you get a tenant account and you are the account administrator for that Active Directory. This is the default Active Directory. You want to go and add more tenants? Yes, of course, you can go and add more tenants. You can go and add users into your environment. You can go and do all those actions which are based on your business needs. You see a nice dashboard of a well known, well commonly configured services right over the landing page. What's next? If it is Active Directory, if it is Azure Active Directory, there should be an identity management solution. Yes, you have users which are available back to you. You can see your user account. I'm using Jeff Robert as my user account. So I have a user account which is available, and I can go and see more details about this account. What is the role assigned? What is his identity? What is the job role? What are the configurations? I can go and look out for all these details. What about the roles which have been assigned? He is a global administrator. He have access to all the services and he have privilege to go and add other users and do some delegations into Azure Active Directory environment. That's what we do. We go and create user account and provide them relevant set of permissions to access resources, to access some of the subscription level configurations. I can go and do that. I can go back to users. I see there are users which are available, or I can just click on new user and create a new Azure Active Directory user for me. Now, if I'm going to use the option of create user, I'm going to provision a user in my own Azure Active Directory instance. What about someone who is not part of my organization, someone who is going to work with me on a contractual basis? I can go and invite such user to go and have a collaboration with that user, with that business, and allow those users to log into my subscription, access few of the resources which I plan to share with them. Not everything which is available on the portal, but there will be a role-based access control. I can go and do that. So there are users, there are invited users which are referred as guests. I can go and say, hey, I'm planning for a user 3 into my environment. The name which I'm going to use here, and I want to generate his password on my own. And that's what you do regularly into your identity management solution. You create identities. You can define the group membership. You can go and do the delegation. Maybe he is going to manage other users into the environment. Why not? I can go and give him a user administrator privilege. This is a Azure Active Directory role-based access control. Now he will be able to do user administration inside my directory. And then rest of the settings, I can go and define which location he is working from. He is working from United States. Rest of the information, job and all that, those details you can go and fill, and that generates a identity for you. I have a identity available. I have a domain also registered here. What is that domain? Now, by default, when you go and create a Azure Active Directory, the Azure Active Directory comes with a default name of onmicrosoft.com. You can go and make changes to that on Microsoft.com, going back to your custom domain. You would be having a custom domain name, and you can add some verified domain name which you have purchased from maybe some vendors, some domain registrars. This is how your enterprise domains have been purchased. You purchase a domain from a public registrar, and then you have the capabilities of using those identities inside the on-prem environment, inside your cloud-based environment. You can create users, you can assign them the relevant permissions, and they will be able to hold that specific role inside your Active Directory. But do I have access to go and invite someone and share some resources? Yes, I do have. If I'll go back to some of my resources, I have a resource group. Let's go and create a quick role-based access control on the resource group. I have a test Windows machine. Here it is. I want to assign this Windows machine to an external user. Go back to IAM and say, hey, I'm planning to provide access to someone who is not part of my Active Directory. I want to assign this role as a owner to an external user. Maybe, let's say, March 8 runcheat@outlook.com. This is a guest user account. I can go and add this guest user account right from the resource sharing tab, and he will be added back to my Azure Active Directory as a guest account. Invited a user. You have invited an external user We have sent him an invitation email, and soon this information is going to refresh back into Azure Active Directory. So not only the identity is created inside the Azure Active Directory, but you can go and invite other users into your environment also. This is what the Azure Active Directory helps you with. And then you have all other tool sets, creating groups, assigning these permission, managing external identities, creating administrative units, enterprise application, publishing, providing access to these applications inside the organization, working with the device registration, AD joint device, hybrid joint, AD registered device. You have all these options. And of course, not to forget, we have multiple license types. You can go and see the different license options which are available on the basis of your own license which you have activated. I have activated a P2 license into my environment, and that's the maximum you can get over the Azure Active Directory. Always look out for AAD pricing. You go to AAD pricing and you'll come to know that AAD is being offered into different pricing tiers, which is going to provide you a different set of permissions. You can look out for the details. You can look out for the features which are being applicable into your environment. You can go and see these details and choose which license type is the best suited into your own enterprise environment. This is how the identity management solution works and have some of these insights. We have seen how you can go and work around these user identities, how you can go and do the Azure Active Directory delegation, how you can go and use a role-based access control for the guest user account. This is what the identity management solution do. We can't go and do the hybrid deployment because it takes a lot of time to go and build that solution. But yes, you can go and integrate it with your on-prem environment as well. This is the capability which comes into this identity management solution which has been provided, primarily targeting a web-based authentication into the environment. Now moving to the second part, what about the governance and compliance? Now governance and compliance is something which every organization needs. It's a mandate for them to follow these guidelines. And while you are deploying your resources, you need to make sure that your resources are as per the governance and compliance standards. Now, these governance and compliance processes can be coming from uh, different authorities. It can be something which is very much unique to your own organizational requirement, your own departmental requirement, or it can be something which has been imposed by the local authorities where you are actually running your business, where you are executing your business operations. And in those cases, Microsoft do provides you multiple tool sets to go and make a compliance for the resources getting deployed into the environment. How you do that? Governance is an ongoing process. What are the activities which are involved in the governance? Governance involves managing your resources. And for resources, I can say we can go and classify these resources into two types. One is my identity management solution, and second is the services which I'm going to provision into the environment. It can be your virtual machine, it can be a website, it can be a storage account, it can be Azure Active Directory, it can be your authentication, authorization, all those services which you go and create, you provision into your environment. You want to make sure that these services are as per the business governance and compliance requirement. You also want the users who are going to use these services, they should also be having a role-based access control. So one is your Active Directory role-based access control, which works on the subscription level, which works on your tenant level. And second is your role-based access control for the services. I have just given a owner permission over a resource group. which is going to provide a invited user permissions to access these resources. This is what you expect. This is what is required into the environment. Now, why even we are bothered about governance and compliance so much? What makes it so important? Because as we move from your on-prem to the cloud, we need something which can help us to get more agility into the deployment. We wanted to go and use the concept of DevOps. We wanted the developers to have their independent role to go and build their solutions to be more innovative, so that they are not dependent on the admin team, they are not dependent on the security team. They can go and create their solutions, they can go and innovate new features inside the application, and they can do their testing on their own. And for those testing, of course, they need to deploy some resources. Now, when it comes to resource deployment, there is a governance and compliance requirement. We can't allow everyone to go and deploy anything which is available on Azure. First, it is going to reflect in your billing. You don't want someone to go and build a VM which is highly charged VM into Azure environment. You don't want someone to go and configure a service which is going to consume a lot of credits, because you can't go and monitor everyone's desktop. You can't go and monitor everyone's activity. So why not to be more proactive? Why not to go and use the governance and compliance features which are available, so that we can balance the agility to be provided to the users along with the governance requirement, which is the core requirement for the business, and making sure that we are in a situation where we can go and manage users by using a role based access control, and managing the resources by using resource policies. And why it is going to be so important? Because you need to maintain the cost of your executions. You want to maintain the resource cost in your environment. You need to make sure that there is a inventory management system. You need to know what all resources are getting executed, what all services are being provisioned. You need to know that the resource which are getting deployed are as per the business needs. They are aligned to the business requirements and governance. And there are templates to go and do that. There are policies to go and create these solutions into your environment. And to do all these, you need to have some scopes defined, where you are going to go and do this management. Are you going to do it at a resource level? Are you going to do it at a resource group level, which is a logical container for multiple resources? Are you going to do it on a subscription, which is a billing boundary in Azure? Or are you going to do it on a management group, which is going to have multiple subscription inside it? You can go and create those inheritance. The scope defines organizations. You can go and create how you want to organize your resources, how you want to go and build this role based access control as well as policies into your environment. You need to create a structure, and that structure comes from creating hierarchies by using management groups. So governance and compliance a is a suite which includes multiple tools available on the portal, and that makes sure that having this cloud IT with those scalability, high availability, SLAs, and global deployment benefits, you are having a control over the resources which are going to be deployed. So we want to allow the users to go and build their solutions, but it should not be in an unlimited mode. It should be well regulated environment. And that's what the governance and compliance refers to. Take some simple examples and we can go and see that on the portal as well. My company says that whenever there is a virtual machine getting created, a virtual machine should be of a specific type. A virtual machine should only be deployed in a specific region. A virtual machine should be enabled with backups. The hard disk of the virtual machine should be encrypted. What is all these requirement? These are all my governance and compliance requirement. I want my data to be encrypted when it is at rest, when it is in transit. I'm dealing with health data, and there is a HIPAA compliance, which I want to make sure that all my resources are under that compliance. I'm working with some personal identifiable information. I'm operating in Europe region. I have a governance and compliance requirement in terms of GDPR. You need to make sure that your resource deployment, your resource creation are under these regulations, under these governance and compliance requirement. And you achieve this by using governance and compliance. Okay. So this is how it's going to work. This is how we are planning to go and implement this into the environment. This is how it is being done practically into your subscriptions. Let's look out for some of these resources over the portal. Should we take a quick break, or it's fine to continue? Let's take a break after looking at these governance and compliance options. I'll give you a quick break of around 10 minutes, but let's look at the governance and compliance first. What are these options when you go back to the portal, how it looks like? So let's talk about creating those scopes into the environment. How do you create those scopes? You create those scopes by creating management groups. And I do have these scopes already created. What you see is a management group hierarchy which has been created, a structure which I have created so that I can go and do a resource management as well as a role management in my organization. So just to take an example, I have a route management group. Under a route management group, I have defined two business units I'm working with. So let me draw this for you. I have an enterprise which is operating in multiple regions, and in multiple regions, of course, there will be product, there will be services which are going to be offered. So I'm having a route management group from where I can go and do the inheritance to all the underlying infrastructure, to all the underlying components. Under that, what I did is I created two business unit, because usually the governance and compliance requirement in US and the governance and compliance requirement in India would have a different will have a difference, okay, because of the regulatory requirements. So I'm creating that structure saying that, okay, I'm going to have a few subscription purchased, and some of these subscriptions are going to be used in the US environment. Some of these subscriptions are going to be used in the India region. And then maybe in India also, I may have multiple business units. I may be working with multiple products. And for those products, I want to take isolation. I want to create some silos so that I can go and manage their billing boundaries. I can go and manage their role-based access control. I can manage their governance and compliance independently, regardless of what is being implemented over the route management group, or to my child management group, or just a management group. How you do that? You can go and create some more management groups here. So I can go and create a management group saying this is for business unit 1. And in the business unit 1 management group, I may have subscription 1, subscription 2, and subscription 3. I'm using subscription 1 for test environment, subscription 2 for staging environment, and subscription 3 for production environment. If this is something which I'm looking out for, and of course, the similar architecture would be there for the US business as well. Or I may have more branches. I may have more products offered in the US. So I may require more branches, more granular control of management. This is what management group provides you. And this is what you are looking at. So I have a route management group. Inside the route management group, I have a business unit India. And in that, I have a service tower 1, and I have mapped a subscription. Now, having these organizations enable me to go and create some role-based access control as well as policies, and then I can use this architecture to define scope. Something which is global in my organization, I can go and apply it at the root group level. Something which is unique to India operations, I can go and apply it on the business unit India. Something which is very specific to a service which has been offered inside India, I can go and create a role-based access control or policy at this unit. And maybe I have a subscription which is for the prod environment. I want to apply a different governance and compliance for the production as compared to staging. You can go and do that by using these subscription level configurations as well. That's great. I have that hierarchy which is going to help me into the management, but how it is being used into the environment? We use it by creating policies. So I do have policies available. Some of these policies are out of box. Some of these policies can be created on your custom business requirement. I have these policy definitions available back to me, and they are categorized into initiatives and definition. Initiative is a group of policies combined together, so you can apply it as one single unit. And if you want to be more granular, you can go and choose policies into the environment. I can go and do a quick uh, filter to identify how many initiatives I have, how many policies I have. You can see these are initiatives which have multiple policies inside it. But if I'll say policies, these are the policies which creates initiative, which groups together to go and provide you a combined configuration for multiple resources. I'm looking out for the built-in policies, not the custom which I have created or imported. I want to use the built-in policies, and I'm looking policies which are related to virtual machines. So I'll go to compute and I'll do a filter, and all compute related policies are now available back to me. Let's go and try to apply something into the environment, and I can go and say I want to allow a specific type of virtual machine. I don't want someone to go and create a virtual machine with 64 core and 4 terabytes of RAM, or maybe 400 GB of RAM or something like that. I can go and use my policies to go and limit the amount of options user can use to deploy resources. Now, specifically, I'm using a virtual machine based policy. So I'm going to limit my virtual machine SKUs, virtual machine types, which can be deployed into the environment. And I'm going to use the scope. This is what the management group provides you, the scope. So if you want to control something at the top level, you are going to apply it on the tenant root groups. Or if you want to be more specific, you can go and say, hey, I'm looking for India Service Tower. I have a subscription, and inside the subscription, there are so many resource groups available. I want to apply this to a demo VNet peering group. And I'll say select. So I have defined a scope where this configuration is going to apply. I'm taking the governance and compliance in my control. Now, regardless of who is going to work on this resource group, how many users I'm going to provide access to, the governance and compliance will always make sure that within this scope, a specific VM type which I'm going to allow is being created. Okay, I can be very selective in what my users can go and deploy into the environment. So I'm providing agility. You can go and create VMs. I'm giving you those permissions. But which VM type you are going to deploy, that's under my control. That's what the governance and compliance can help you with. So you can go and define which VM types are allowed. You can go and create some remediation action. You can show some messages, some custom messages if the resources are not compliant back, and then you can go and create these policies into the environment. You just create the policy, and once this policy is initiated and applied, it takes around 10 to 15 minutes to complete this process in the background. But once it is active and applied, although you are going to have permissions in my subscription to go and create VMs, but into that specific logical group, you can go and deploy only basic VM types. You are not allowed to go and deploy anything else into my environment because I have some regulations, I have some compliance requirement. Okay, so this was a quick demo of how you can go and use this policy and management group to go and get some more details inside the configuration. And of course, for the cost management, you do have your subscriptions and cost management options. You can go to subscriptions and you can look out for the cost-based deployment which has been done. You can look out for a detailed billing which have been executed into the environment, the resources which have been consumed, the total credits you have taken. You'll be able to see all these details on the fly in this management console. And if you want to do some more uh, control in terms of spends, in terms of services, you have options to go and create budgets. You can apply budgets saying that I'm going to limit the credit utilization only to this limit. And even when someone reaches to 80% of this quota or 90% of the quota, I want to get some notifications. So the cost analysis can be done, cost alerts can be created, and budgets can be configured so that you take ownership and you take control of all your resources into the environment. Okay, that's cool. That's something which you can go and achieve by using governance and compliance into the environment. Okay, yeah, so let's take a quick break here. I believe everyone would be requiring that.
How long do you want to take?
Maybe 7 minutes, 6 minutes.
Sounds great. Let me get that timer up. One moment. Sorry, it's being a little tricky. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Oh, I was just sharing my screen and we can start our break.
Sure. Thank you, Lily.
Oh, crap. That is not the screen. You
have turned your cam on.
I'm trying to turn it off. Oh my goodness, that's super embarrassing. I'm on East Coast time, everyone. So why did it do that? So I literally got out of bed to join this webinar. I can't even, you know what? I don't know why it did that. Share, make presenter, show my screen, not me sitting here in my robe. That was awesome. Ben, I hope you can edit that out in post. Okay, let's go ahead and share the screen back with Rajiv. If you want to put up the timer next time, then maybe we won't have any incidents. I have never ever done that, and I am sorry.
No
Uh,
problem.
that is mortifying and also hilarious at the same time. I am betting there's at least one other person on here sitting in their pajamas. So try not to judge me too harshly. Let's go ahead and jump back in.
Sure. Okay, so here we are. I hope the screen is already shared with you and no cams from my side. So here we are on the portal. The policy have already been executed. It's been triggered, not executed. I have triggered it. It takes time to get it started. So we'll be revisiting this configuration in next 10 to 15 minutes just to verify that whatever we are going to configure, is it actually making a governance and compliance run into my environment or not. So this is pretty much about the governance and compliance. There are many more features to it, but because of the time limitations, we can't go and do each and every lab which we are supposed to do into AZ 104. But just to give you a nice overview of what this governance and compliance is, and giving you an idea about why it is so important for the organizations to make sure that they control the role-based access control, which is required for the user identity, and the and the properties, the configuration of the resources can also be in control of the organizational management. And this is how the governance and compliance is maintained. Let's move to the next part, where we are going to discuss about all these definitions which we have already seen into our labs. So governance and compliance is an ongoing process of monitoring, managing, and auditing the resource, and to meet the goal and requirements of your organization. And for these, we have some tools available. We have Azure Management Group. The management groups gives you a enterprise grade management at a large scale. If you have a global organization, you may have multiple subscriptions. How you are organizing these subscription is going to be a key task for the architects as well as the administrators, so that the same hierarchical structure which you have been using for ages in your on-prem environment, you can actually go and duplicate the same structure over the cloud and maintain a nice organization of your resources, and taking control of a role-based access control for these multi-level deployment which you are going to create. What is Azure policy? A policy includes implementing the governance and compliance in terms of resource consistency. I have limited the consistency for my virtual machine, saying that this specific SKU can be deployed. I'm now in control of what is going to be deployed. Second, the regulatory compliance requirement. I have policies where I can go and specify location. Now, if I'll go back, this will make even more sense. I am able to go and create something like this, and I'll say, hey, I'm looking for a policy which includes location parameter. And what that location says, allowed location. Now my governance and compliance requirement could be the resource should only be deployed in a specific region. I can go and do this governance and compliance as well in the organization. Again, defining the scope. I'm going to use the same scope, but this time I'm going to be at a subscription level, not at the resource group level. I'm going to apply it at a subscription level, or let's make it more production ready. I want to be applying it on India business unit itself. Select it, and then I can go and define what are the allowed location to go and deploy resources in the environment. Only India region. Now, I may have multiple subscription under this business unit, but l- just sitting as a cloud administrator role, I have a control There can be hundreds of people who have access to resource creation permissions, but when they are going to create it, they need to be under this governance and compliance requirement. The resource should always be in my India region. It should never be going out of this specific geographical location. This is what I can go and perform by using governance and compliance. And there are many more. There are 700 plus policies. It's your wish. You want to go and explore a lot about it. Go and provision as your free subscription, and you will be able to explore all these services. Azure Blueprints, that gives you even more capabilities. Just having policies in place limits the scope of your governance and compliance, because policies are only and only applicable to resource. What you want to go and take control of the roles as well. You want to take control of the users as well. You want to take control of the resource deployment automation, which is going to run in the background. So when you are working with blueprints, you are able to create a subscription, you are able to create a deployment which is going to follow organizational standards, patterns, and requirement. And in these blueprint, you have policies, which you have already seen there. You do have role-based access control, which I have shown you into my lab environment, how you can go and assign someone a owner permission or a contributor permission or a service specific permission. You can go and apply your ARM templates. And we are going to discuss that. What is ARM template? This is like infrastructure as a code, which you can go and apply into the environment. You can go and create your own resource groups and define who is going to be the owner of these resource group. So Blueprint allows you to go and include all these four metadata in the configuration. You combine all these four and you make sure that now you have a multi-dimensional control in place for the governance and compliance. You are taking control of the resource, you are taking control of the deployment, you are taking control of the identities which are going to run in your environment, and you are also going to take control of the resource group, which is going to be a logical container into your environment. You have a service called resource graph. Resource graphs allow you to go and use the service to query the resources throughout your subscription. You will be able to do this inventory management thing by using this resource graph. Allows you to go and use the exploration ability to go and run queries to find out some specific resource type which are under a specific subscription, under a resource group, or maybe under a management group. You can go and do that. You have options for cost management and billing to go and do cost analysis to know the historical data of your billing, and also to get some forecast. If you continue with the same pattern, if you continue with the same uses pattern of your resources, how you can go and estimate the cost by the end of this month. You have these capabilities. Cost analysis can be done, cost alerts can be created, budgets can be defined. All these tools allow you to be in more control uh, of your subscription, of your costing, as well as the resources getting deployed. Now, of course, if you know about the governance and compliance, if you know about the identity, you should be knowing about how to go and interact with Azure. What are the different options? How I can go and interact with Azure as a service? So Azure provide you a suite of tools to go and interact with the services, with the APIs directly for the services, or maybe by using a nice GUI tool to interact with some specific service. Take example of Azure portal. You are able to go and navigate through all the service offerings which are available. On the contrary, if you go to a storage explorer, this is a tool which you can go and deploy in your local desktop and laptop. It allows you to interact with storage as a service. You want to move data from on-prem to the cloud, from cloud to another cloud, or maybe from one subscription to another subscription. All those actions can easily be performed. You may be working with the organizations who are very keen to introduce automation, who wants to optimize their workload by providing automation in the resource creation, resource management, resource monitoring, resource deletion. The whole life cycle management needs to be automated. You will be requiring scripts. You will be requiring tools to enhance these management capabilities for you. So whatever configuration you want to do in terms of the resource creation, management, deletion, modification, monitoring, you'll be working with these services. And these services are connected through a management layer referred as Azure Resource Manager. There is also one component which is in between them, which is referred as Resource Provider. So resource provider takes those commands from the resource manager and then execute it on a specific service instance. So if you are working on a portal, the GUI tool, if you are working on PowerShell, the command line tool, if you are more comfortable with a bash based command syntax, if you are a Linux administrator, you may be loving bash. If you are a Windows administrator, you want to execute something on the PowerShell, we have both the tools available. For Windows, PowerShell based syntax for the commands, for bash based syntax, and you may have some tools like Visual Studio Code or Java or Python or those SDK softwares packages which are available. Those also gives you the capability of provisioning your resources over the cloud. So any client, any REST client you are using, or you are using PowerShell or CLI or Portal, you always connect back to Azure Resource Manager, which do have authentication and authorization available. I can go and verify the identity who is going to execute or who is going to log into my portal. I'm also going to verify his capability to work with a specific resource type. Do the user have a VM creator role aligned to him? Do a user have a backup operations delegated to his profile? Can a user create web application into the environment? This is something which I need to take care of as a cloud administrator. I need to define authentication. I need to define authorization for these identities. And this has been executed at this management layer itself. Can we see this in labs? Yeah, why not? We can. I'll go back to my portal and let's try to create resource group, because we discussed about that resource group a lot, which is a logical grouping of resources. I'm going to say I want to create a resource group. Okay, great. What resource group you want to create? I'll say demo masterclass AC 104. And I can go and create it. You can always go and add some tag information which further can be used into filtering your data, into searching your specific resource type, into doing some chargeback in the organization. We have multiple use case scenarios for these tags, but for the demonstration, I'm just going to avoid these tags and review and all that. I'll just say, hey, can you go and create this resource for me? And there we are with a resource group. Great, we had our resource group available. But what this resource group is all about, the resource group is going to provide me role-based access control. The resource group provides me resource cost. It allows me to go and do some deployments by using templates. It allows me to go and apply some policies, to go and lock some of the resources, to get more insights about the resource getting deployed, to get some metrics, to get some alerts, to get some costing in place. Of course, get some logging, monitoring, all those features, but it needs resources inside it. This is just a container to hold resources. Okay, so I do not have any resource yet. Let's go and create a resource. I'm going to create a quick virtual machine. We do not have a topic for compute, but it's always fascinating to see how easy it is to build a quick infrastructure into your Azure environment. So I'm going to say, hey, I have created a resource group and I'm planning to use this for my demo VM. And this is going to be a Server 2019 machine. I don't mind it. This is going to be the configuration. What compute I want to run behind the scenes. The total number of CPUs, the total number of RAM, the capacity of RAM. I can go and define that, and I have a large catalog to select it. Depending on the workload, I can go and make changes to this configuration. For my demo environment, this will work. And here we are with the username and password. Definitely, if you are deploying your resources, you need to access them. If it is a virtual machine, one of the access point is RDP. If it is Windows, if it is Linux, it can be SSH. So I'm going to create a user identity. I'm going to allow my RDP port over the internet. Of course, not a best practice. It's okay to go and do it in the demo environment, but you will not see that being executed into production. It opens vulnerability for port scanning. You don't want to expose each and every resource over internet. In terms of cost, in terms of security, it's not optimized. But for the demo, I'm going to enable it, and I'll say, yeah, I can go and use the licensing benefit. So if you have your licenses for server, if you have licenses for SQL, you can use those license benefit, which is also referred as bring your own keys, BYOK. So I'll say, yep, I want to use those hybrid benefits. I do have those MSDN subscriptions available back to me. I have disk configuration, I have network configuration, I have management configuration, which is available for the VM, some advanced configuration of extensions and all that. I'll say I don't need boot diagnostic right now. So management and some agents which I can go and deploy, some extensions which I can go and install. And then I'll say, yeah, I'm pretty much okay with this resource. And that's going to create a network in the background, and a VM will be created over that network. So let's go and build that, because I'm going to use this for my upcoming demos. Let's go and create it right now. I do have some existing VMs which are running, but let's start from scratch how it's going to build up. So we are talking about resource managers. We are talking about resource providers. I'm working on portal. So what I'm doing is, as a user, I may not be making my correct figures, but as a user, as a happy user to work on Azure, I'm working on portal. Through the portal, I'm interacting with Azure Resource Manager, and I have asked for a virtual machine, and this virtual machine definitely needs a network in the background. So it's going to be a dependent service. So I have triggered two service creation into my environment, and this is going to get through a resource provider. Let's see those details. You should be able to see Microsoft Compute and then virtual machine. So these are the two details. Copy, Windows R, Notepad, and paste. These are the two details. I want you to note this is virtual machine. Now, what does this signifies? This is actually a resource provider for me. and this is the actual resource. Whenever you are going to work with any service, you work through a resource provider which triggers that resource modification, creation, deletion, whatever actions you are going to take. The API goes through this resource provider. Do we have any access to see how many resource provider we have? That can be one of the question which you may have, but because you do not have voice right now in the webinar, I'll answer that for you. I'll go back to subscriptions, and I can go and see a detailed list of all my resource providers. I have a storage resource provider, I have network resource provider, I have Microsoft Advisor, Microsoft Health, Operation Manager, Workload, Insights, Operations, Compute, Security. I have multiple resource providers, and some of them are registered. That means I can go and use these services right away. Some of them are not registered. If I'm going to start those resources which are dependent on these services, I need to make sure that these resource providers are running in the background. They should be in a registered state. And it's not going to take a lot of time. You can select any of your resource provider and simply click on register button. That will register this resource provider, and the underlying services will be able to execute in your subscription. So here we are on the portal. The resource got deployed. I'll go back to my configuration. This is what we were looking at. Create VM got completed. You have successfully deployed this. How can I go and look to these details? There are two different ways. You may be interested into looking at the configuration in a template format, in a JSON format, so that you can go and duplicate this VM again and again. You may have a requirement to build some resources for development team. There are 4 development team. You want to duplicate the same resource set for all those 4 teams. One way, you go to portal and you create these resources one by one 4 times. The second way is, why not to go and get a template out of these resources? So if this is the VM for which I want to create a template, I can go and do that. I don't want to create it for the VM because I need it a VM with a network. So I'll go back to my resource group, and what I'm able to see is a network which got provisioned, a virtual machine which has been provisioned, a public IP which has been created, a security group which got automatically provisioned because of this VM trigger. So this VM, I only triggered a VM, but these are some dependent services. I got a public IP, I got a security rule, I got a NIC card, and of course, I got a VHD, a disk which is holding the operating system of this virtual machine. And now, if I want to recreate this environment again, I just need to go down and need to export this template. This is the ARM template. This is very much similar to what you do in your third-party tools like Terraform, creating template, creating a custom configuration and applying it so that the specific resources gets created. I can use this as infrastructure as a code. I can go and download this config. Once it has been downloaded, I can go and open this, and I should not have double clicked over it. So I'll just copy it, going back to my desktop folder. It is going to trigger my visual code. So I'll just paste it there. I don't want to trigger it with visual code. I just want to see this template real quick. Open with Notepad. That's one of the interesting tool. Now, this is the template which got created when I click on this download button, and you should be able to see everything which got deployed inside this resource group. I have a demo VM, which is a string value. I have a network interface. This is a string value. I have a public IP, which is a string value. I have a NSG available to me. I have a network being created in the background. There is a provider which got activated, Microsoft Network, and this provider helped me to go and build groups, the security groups, the configuration which allows me to filter the incoming and outgoing traffic. It allowed me to go and create some more resources as well. Okay, looks like the system is not responding. I'm just going to close this visual code for a while. Yeah, let's get back to config. Yep, I can go and see my security groups. I can go and see my public IP creation, my IP addresses, my network which got created. I can go and see my virtual machine which has been built up, and there are multiple resource provider which helped me to go and build this whole infrastructure, starting from the disk and then the NIC card and the public IP and all that. And I have all these resources now up and running. I can use this and duplicate this environment multiple times. I can go and create a automation which is going to duplicate this environment 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, depending on my business needs. I can go and do that. So here we have a VM which is running for us. Okay, so that's the core concept. That's something which you need to understand while you start working with Azure. You're working on portal, and okay, why not to go and see some commandlets as well. So I'm just going to close it. And the best part is, if you want to do some management over the commands, now this is all on GUI, but what about the commands? Now some of you may not be very much comfortable with the command line tools because this is your first interaction with Azure, but yeah, we do have these tools available on the browser itself. You don't need to deploy anything on your local machine. You can go and run some basic commandlets directly over portal. And what those commandlets can do, anything which you are able to do in your portal, you can go and create those resources, manage those resources from the command line also. So if you want to execute something over the bash commandlet, you can go and do that into your environment also. So if I want to go and create a resource group, I have a simple command. I'll paste it. I want to create a resource group. What is the name of your resource group? I'm going to create a resource group saying test resource group bash. Why bash? Because I'm right now using a bash prompt. And the location where I want to create this resource group is West US, the region where this resource is going to be deployed. Just enter. And what you see is the confirmation that it has been succeeded. I'll go back. I'll just wait for a while and do a refresh to see if that resource group is available or not. Not yet. It just takes some time. Be patient. Refresh. Not there. Refresh. And there it is. Test RG bash. I created this into my GUI mode. I created this in a bash mode, and I can go and create VMs. I can go and create networks. What about PowerShell? Those who loves to execute PowerShell command, you can also go and do that. We do provide you the PowerShell based prompt available back to you. how you are going to execute the commands there. You can go and do that. You can go and say, hey, I'm looking for new AZ resource group where the name is going to be test RG PowerShell and the location is going to be North Europe. Done. How simple it is. You don't have to browse through multiple windows. You don't have to click next, next, next multiple times. Just execute a simple command and the result is still the same. What you were able to achieve from the GUI, you can go and do that from the PowerShell, from the bash. The management is always going to be available over this management layer. So you are working on portal or CLI or PowerShell, still working with the same Azure manager in the background triggers Azure resource provider, and then the service in the background of all these implementations which are getting executed by using scripts, by using ARM templates, all that you'll be able to do. I hope it's exciting you to get more details about this management, this cloud-based deployment model. So the same information which were available in graphics, now let's go and read through that detail as well. So there are two broad categories of these management tool, one which is a visual tool, one which is a code-based tool. A visual tool is Azure Portal, which provides you a visual friendly interface to interact with the services, to get the help, to get the navigation, to build your resources. And on top of that, what if you do not have access to your desktop or laptop right now? You are on holidays and you're not taking your laptop or desktop with you while you are going over the beach or something like that, and suddenly you got a alert that there is a VM which has been deployed, although you were in control of the governance and compliance, but somehow you missed it for one of the resource group, and you got an alert that a large size VM got deployed, and you want to make sure that it should not run for a longer period of time because it is going to impact the cost. You can go and deploy a simple mobile app, which is again a GUI based tool. You can go and deploy Azure mobile app available on your Macs, on your uh, Android. You can go and deploy the tool. You take your authentication, and you have a GUI to go and fix the issues. Also, it provides you PowerShell and Bash prompts. So if you are good with scripts, if you are good with your configuration, and you have stored something in your profile, I can go and store different kinds of script into my own profile. While I'm working with these, you can see that I have my own directory. I can go and put my files there, my scripts to do some cleanup, to do some deletion, to do some modifications. I can just simply execute those commands and get rid of that resource which was not supposed to get executed. So you have two options to go and work in a visual portal, a portal and the mobile app. And if you are a guy who have experience, you have been working on Azure for a while, and you know what are the services available, and while creating a service, like if you are creating a resource group, what are the parameters which are required? The parameters are the name and location. The parameters for virtual machine would be the name, resource group, network, locations, and all the credentials. These are some of the parameters which are required to create a VM. If you are working with a load balancer, the parameters are different. If you are working with application gateways, the parameters are different. I'm talking about some of the services on network, some of the services on compute, some of the services for traffic management. If you are comfortable with those core concepts, you have PowerShell CLI available to you. And if you want to rebuild the whole environment again and again, do some automation, do some infrastructure as a code based deployment, you can go and start working with ARM templates. So this is how you can go and categorize your deployment types, deployment options. And now moving forward to the final stage of this discussion, the networking. How this networking is important, how this networking is being done, what are the different ways of connecting the resources. Um, we are not going in details of everything. It is not because we can't go in details, it's because of the limitation of this webinar. So we go and discuss all of these content in great detail. We do these labs, we try to simulate the environment, and we have 3 dedicated modules for only and only network. So out of 11 modules, 3 are for network. You can identify how important this aspect of service is. So when it comes to networking services, networking provides you connectivity. For sure, it helps you to get connected back to the resources which have been deployed into the environment. And these resources can be something which has been deployed just in your cloud-based deployment model, or it can be a hybrid multi-cloud deployments as well. And what you will be requiring in that case, you require connectivity services. The connectivity services which can be categorized into virtual networks, into virtual WAN, into express routes, into VPN gateways, into Azure DNS, into VNet peering, into Azure Bastion. All these services are related to connectivity. But these are not the only services with which you work into the environment. You have other services as well. What type of other services I'm referring to? You have services which deals with application security, which helps you to get more details about how you can go and protect your applications. What are the combination of these services, like your load balancers, which helps you to protect your environment with the uh, options of providing you high availability. You have private links where you can go and define the integration which is going to happen between multiple Azure services. You have DDoS protection, you have firewalls, you have NSGs which are available back to you. You can go and configure virtual network endpoints. And this is still only one part of your Azure network services. You have application delivery services also available back to you, which we are not taking care of right now in the webinar. But just to give you a small brief detail, that you can go and deliver applications in Azure Virtual Network, and you can use services like Content Delivery Network. You can go and use services of Azure Front Door, which accelerates your performance. You can go and use Traffic Manager, which allows you to go and do a weighted traffic management or a priority traffic management. You'll be able to do a geo-based traffic management. You can go and use application gateways which understand your layer 7 based configuration, URL, SSL configurations and all that. You can go and use load balancers. You have options of network monitoring, a dedicated tool, network watcher, which is available. You have ExpressRoute monitor, you have Azure monitor available. There are multiple services which helps you to monitor this environment, to go and help you identify what are the different options available. So we are going to have a quick demo for some of these services. We can't go and explore everything in the background, but yes, we are going to look at what is virtual network. A virtual network which enables multiple resources to go and communicate to each other. Out of the box, it has been there for virtual machines. The virtual machines which are going to communicate to each other, they are going to use this network as a concept. But if you're working into a hybrid environment, you have your on-prem and cloud-based deployment, then you will require a connectivity between these two different sites. This can be done either by using a VPN-based connectivity, a VPN gateway, which allows you to send encrypted traffic to the Azure network by using your ISP, by using your internet service provider. So you don't need a dedicated connection, a special connection type in your company. You just use the plain internet connectivity which you have, and you try to encrypt your data and send it back to the Azure environment over the internet, over the public networks. Now, this can be one of the governance and compliance issues. It can be governance and compliance issue. It also have the limits in terms of bandwidth, because you are going to use a shared network, a shared internet network. So the companies who prefer to go into hybrid, who have a latency sensitive applications, who need great performance, who need security in which is on layer 2 rather than just sharing the internet. They want layer 2 connectivity, MPLS based connectivity into the environments. They prefer to go and work with express routes, which extends your on-premise network back to the cloud, into a co-located mode or into a point to site mode, any connect. There are different types of connections which are available. Now, once you have these connectivity in place, once you are able to connect resources on Azure, resources on Azure and on premises, you'll definitely be looking for DNS service, which is nowadays like a backbone service for all your applications. You're using DNS service to resolve names, to resolve IP addresses, to resolve NS lookups, and all those activities which are going to perform over the name resolution, over your pointer records, over your name servers, start of authority. You can go and build all these record types over the Azure, and Azure offers two different types of DNS config: public DNS and private DNS. Public DNS can be for the internet facing resources. Private DNS is specifically created for your Azure based deployment, for your internal resource over the Azure. You can connect two different networks together by using peering. You don't need to have a VPN gateway. You don't need to have ExpressRoute. If you are on Azure, if both the networks are on Azure, regardless of the location, regardless of the subscription, the account, you will be able to peer the networks if they are available on Azure networks. You can go and connect your resources together. And last but not the least, one of the service you may have already experienced in your on-prem environment are jump servers. The jump servers where you go and connect to the environment, and then you can go and switch to the internal servers. Microsoft have a scalable, secure service to go and replace this environment to you, having a Bastion-based deployment. It provides you a RDP and SSH connectivity for the internal resources, but not over internet by exposing these virtual machines. It is a managed service being created by Microsoft. You go and build a Bastion subnet inside your network, and then the devices can be accessed over HTTPS, a secured way to connect your resources. And we are going to explore some of these concepts into the labs. Okay, some of the connectivity services and some of these application protection services. Let's do that. Now we are going to move back to the cloud services, and let's try to get some more details about these intersite connectivity options. Now what you should be able to see are two different networks which I have: test RG100 and test RG200. These are the two resource groups, and they contain two networks. There it is, VNet 1 and VNet 2, and these are in East US region. I'll give you a quick glimpse how these networks are created, and then we'll try to have the connectivity between these two networks. Okay, so let's try to get back to virtual networks and try to create a network for us. I'm going to create a network, not going in details of this config, but we'll try to explore some of the important aspect of the configuration. I'll use my demo Microsoft master class AZ104, and I'm going to call it as East US network. Okay, and then of course any network you are going to work with, IP based configuration you are going to work with, you need to define your IP addresses. You need to define what is the IP address class you have consumed in your environment. In my case, I'm using an IP address class of C and a default subnet mask, which allows me to put 255 or 254 valid host. But when you are working on Azure, this concept gets changed. Why? Because for this Azure address, when you try to create a subnet, I'll say front end. When you try to create a network saying 192.168.0.0/25, it says we are going to reserve 5 addresses for you. So as compared to your on-prem environment where there are only 2 addresses which get reserved, a network address and broadcast address, when you are working on Azure, Azure reserves 5 addresses. Network address and broadcast address still remains there, but then there is one additional address which get reserved for DNS services, and there are 2 additional addresses which get reserved for the gateway. Okay, so how does it looks like? Let me pull out one quick file which do have these details for you. Okay, if you're working with IP addressing, now we have all labs, so I'll try to give you as much as insights into this deployment. It becomes easier for you to understand how it has actually been working in the background. So if I'm going to open this IP addressing, this is how IP addressing looks like. If you are going to create a subnet mask of 24, you have a network address of 192.168.0.0. You have a broadcast address of 192.168.0.255. This is what you see in your on-prem environment. But then in Azure, there is a gateway address which gets reserved. There is a DNS address which gets reserved. And because of this gateway and DNS addresses, you will see 0 is reserved, 1 is reserved, 2 is reserved, 3 is reserved, and the last address is reserved. The total reservation count comes to 5. And your valid address range is 192.168.0.4 to 192.168.0.254. And we are going to do the same. Let's try to create a similar deployment into the environment. Where is my config? Here it is. I'm going to create a network, add network, and I have a front end. And that's it. I'm not going to go through all other configurations which are available in terms of security tag and all that. Let's go and create this network first. Now, people who have already done some of their labs, who have some exposure over the Azure, this is something you may have already seen. You may have already experienced it. But those who are very new to the Azure environment as well as the cloud technology, you may experience that there are some changes. So as per my experience, if you have been working into your on-prem environment as a network admin or as an identity management or maybe a security auditor or something like that, in terms of Azure, you can find 70%, 75% content which remains very much identical. But then because cloud is going to have a multi-tenant environment, there are multiple organizations who are using this infrastructure, there has to be some limitations to each and every tenant so that uh, company A should not impact the performance and the resource availability for company B. And this is what Microsoft manages in the background. They create those boundaries for each and every organization to just consume the services and just remain in those silos, not impacting the other tenants as well as the base infrastructure over which this cloud is running. And to do that, you have some software defined networks, you have some DNS configurations, you have some software load balancing which is running, and there is a lot of service fabric which has been deployed for you to give you those isolated resource compatibility. So the resource have been deployed. Now I should be able to see a network inside my resource group. This is my resource group, and I can see a network which I just deployed, East US Virtual Net. And the location of this network is East US. What if I have another network in West US? Let's go and do a quick creation of this West US network as well. Here we are, virtual network, create a resource group. Now you should be more comfortable with the interfaces. I'm just going to call it West US, and the region is also going to be West US. IP addresses, you need to make sure that the IP addresses are not overlapping each other. If the IP addresses overlap each other, then you will not be able to do the peering. Because if the IP addresses are conflicting in two different networks, there is no way you can connect them and you will be able to maintain network connectivity. That's a very core concept of networking. IP address needs to be unique if devices needs to communicate to each other. We are planning to have two different devices, two different networks, and if their IP address classes are going to be from the same IP address range, the devices are going to have conflicting IP. So I'm going to use a network like 172.16.0.0/16. I'm using a class B of address. That's fine for me. I can go and do that. And then I'm going to create a subnet out of it. I'll call it app network. And let's take the range 172.16.1.0/24. That's fine. I'm just going to create one subnet and let's create this network. Okay, great. It looks good. But here, I was talking about some network monitoring tool or something. Can I see this building, these resources which are getting created? Can I see these resources into that network monitoring tool? Are there any tools which can help me with this visual of the resources getting deployed? Yes, of course, you do have those resources. Go back to Network Watcher, select the topology, look out for your resource group, and you can see you have resources being created. You have a West US network with application net as a subnet. You have a East US network with a front end as a subnet. And all these networks are parallel. They have no connectivity being created inside it. Okay, we do not have any connectivity between them. Now we are planning to do a peering in my network. Okay, I have this West US network, I have my East US network, and these networks were created 1 year back. I have multiple resources here. I have multiple resources deployed in this network. And now the business requirement is to make them communicate to each other. How we can go and do that? There are multiple ways to achieve this. You can do a VNet to VNet config, or you can do a peering. When you do a peering, the only condition is both your networks should be on Azure. And I think I qualify for this condition. Both the networks are on Azure. So why to go into a complex network creation in VNet to VNet when I can do a simple configuration of peering? And we are going to see peering after a break. Do anyone needs that break? I think so. We have been talking a lot about these technologies, and I believe it's a good time to
Y-
have a breather in
Yeah,
between the session.
sorry, I was trying to get myself unmuted. Yes, I think a break is it's a great time to do that. Do you want to pull up the timer this time?
Yeah, sure.
And
I'll
how
do
long
that.
would you like to do for that?
Okay, let's make a unique time 9 minutes.
9 minutes. Wonderful. We will see you back here in 9 minutes, everyone. See you soon.
Here we are, and see you soon. Okay, welcome back. That would be a last break for this session. We'll try to continue.
Wonderful.
Okay, so we'll try to continue till the end of this webinar with that break. And here we are. Here we left our discussion, and we were supposed to get these two networks connected. One, which is in West US, another one, which is in East US, and we are planning to get these two networks connected together by using peering. And let's see the config, how it looks like. The config is pretty straightforward. You go back to the network of your choice. In my case, it is going to be a East US network. I hope. Okay. One is East US I created, and another one is West US. I'll just make a cross check between these two network. Yeah, it is East US net. I just forgot to add net into the name. So we need to connect East US net with the West US. Let's connect over the East US net, and you have these peering options available. You say, I want to peer this network. Okay, great. We understand that there is a new business requirement which comes to you, and you are in need of connecting these two networks together. How you are going to do that is by providing a name. So I'm going to call it East US to West US connection. But there is a naming culture on Azure that you can't go and use spaces inside these connection names. So here we are with the East US to West US connection, and you need to connect West US back to East as well. So this is a East US to West US connection. It is going to ask a remote peering network name as well, where I'm going to put it as West US to East US connection. And of course, right now you are on East US network, and to which network you are planning to connect? You are planning to connect to a West US network. You get a drop down regardless of their locations. Okay, so as I discussed that on Azure, regardless of your location, you have a local peering, you have a global peering. You can go and connect to the resources which are in the same region, which are in the different regions, can also be paired together. So I'm planning to connect to the West US network, and that's what the name I have specified. And I just need to click add. If everything goes well, it should give me a confirmation that your connections have been created. Added virtual network, and it's connected as well. So on my East US network, I created a network connection name, East US to West US connection, which says it is in connected state. If I'll go back and I'll say, hey, in the West US, do I have any peering? It will say, yes, you did this peering into your environment. Okay, just going to take some time. Here it is. You just did a peering, West US to East US connection, and the status is connected. And that means any device inside these two networks now will be able to communicate to each other. Can you see this? You just build this line. No, we didn't build that line. We actually created peering into the environment. And of course, post this peering, if you have devices inside these subnets, you can go and do a check whether the VM1 can connect to VM2 or not? Definitely. If my status is connected on both the sides, that means this peering is active and live, and the devices will be able to route their traffic to each other's subnet. But there could be a different situation. What could be a different situation? A different situation can be that one of my network, I'll just remove all these marks. Okay, my different situation is I have this network. Okay, this is VNet 1. And let's assume that I have my organizational need, which says that this VNet 1 should get connected to on-premise. And right now, we can't go and invest a lot in express routes, maybe because of my budgetary constraints, maybe because of my uses. I don't need a express route right away. Okay, of course, ExpressRoute gives you more reliability, gives you more bandwidth, gives you more connectivity options. Your circuits can be created. You don't send the packet in the encrypted because it is like a dedicated connection from your network back to your cloud-based environment. Your hybrid applications, which are latency sensitive, can be operated there as well. You have different types of plans available in the ExpressRoute as well. But let's say we do not have that requirement right now. We just need a connectivity, not a high bandwidth, scalable, and more more uses are not there into the environment. So I'm going to plan for a VNet gateway based connectivity. What this VNet gateway is going to provide me? This VNet gateway says that this is your cloud environment, this is your on-premise environment. We can allow you to connect these two network over internet. How we are connected together? We are connected through internet. And I want to make sure that the devices which are in on-premise, they can reach back to the devices which are inside the cloud by using this internet-based connection. And of course, because this is internet-based connection, I need to send my traffic in an encrypted mode. I can't go and send my traffic in a plain text format. What are the options? The options are to go and create VPN tunnels. VPN and the on-premise, VPN on the cloud, and then these two devices get connected together. And this is what you see into my network topology. Now, of course, I can't go and create an on-prem environment. So what we are assuming that we have two different networks. Okay, one network which is my VNet 1, and another network which I have is my VNet 2. And these are in two different resource group. They can be in two different geographical location. One network, you can assume it on another cloud provider, and one network is on Azure. One network is on Azure, another network is on premises. The process, the way it happens in the background remains same. Okay, what you have to do? So firstly, there has to be a network for sure. So you created a network, and inside the network, you created a subnet. You already seen these two steps, how you go and create a network and how you create a subnet. Now, to provide a VPN-based connectivity, you need to deploy a gateway device. The gateway device, which helps you to get one connection back to your local area network and one connection to internet. This is what the role of this VPN gateway is. The VPN gateway is going to be a virtual appliance. It is like a virtual machine which is running in the background actually. So this virtual appliance have two interfaces. If I'm going to create a gateway here, it will become more easy. So this gateway is connected back to my cloud network, and this gateway have a connectivity over internet. And in the same way, I may have another VNet. This VNet will have its own subnet. But if I want these two subnets to connect, I again need to deploy a gateway here. The gateway will have a local connectivity and the gateway is connected to the internet. And now by using this internet-based connectivity, the device which is there in the network will be able to send its traffic to the gateway. The gateway will be able to route that traffic to the internet. From the internet, it reaches back to the gateway deployed on the cloud, and then it reaches back to the network. I hope this flow is clear to everyone what we are talking about. We have one network which is VNet 1. We have another network which is VNet 2, and we are just assuming that another network to be on another cloud or to be on-premise, and we need to plan a connectivity between these two networks, which right now are not at all connected. So what are the series of steps you need to perform? The first step is you create your network with subnet. Of course, you cannot create a network without at least one subnet. One subnet is a basic requirement. Second, you are going to create a gateway subnet. This is must. Why we need a gateway subnet? This gateway subnet allows the gateway to get an internal IP address. Why? Because this gateway is part of this network. The range which is there inside this gateway is a internal IP address. And the gateway device connects to this gateway subnet only. So you go and create a gateway subnet which provides you local address. Local address over the cloud. The third option, you go and deploy your gateway. Now deploying this gateway takes around 40 to 45 minutes. And this is why you see this gateway already deployed. I did it as a prerequisite for this demo. I already deployed this VNet gateway in my environment. And the same series of steps would be on the other side of the network as well. So you will be creating a network with subnet. You go and create gateway subnet. You go and create or deploy gateway. Once this is done, these gateways get public IP. This gateway is also going to get a public IP. And then you go and configure a connection between these two gateways. Now, right now, because both the environment are on Azure, it would be a simple task because this environment will be referred as virtual network to virtual network because both the networks are right now in my Azure. But if it would be on other cloud provider, if it would be a on-premise environment, I'm going to call it site to site. And for site to site, you need one step which you need to perform. So that additional step which comes with the site to site is you need to create a local gateway. This local gateway is a reference to the counter network. And in the same way, on this side, you are going to create a local gateway, and this local gateway will be a reference for the other side of network. That's it. You will be able to route your traffic between these two networks now. Let's go and see this deployment in action. So I have this network available. I have a VPN gateway also available. I have a VPN gateway subnet also. I'm going to click on this VNet gateway, and I have this connection tab. I have created a gateway in advance, but I have not done a connection. So these two networks are not at all connected to each other. If I'll click on the connections, you'll see it is blank. It doesn't have any connection at all. How can we go and create these connections? You click on add, and it opens a similar window to peering, but you have a different configuration. In the peering, it was all Azure networks. But now on VPN, you need to be more secure. You need to provide your encryption. You need to provide your routing. You need to define the high availability. You need to define active, 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 passive configuration. So that means it's more complex. So I'm going to create a connection saying that this is VNet 1 to VNet 2. Am I going to create a VNet to VNet? Yes, of course. This is for this demo environment. Both the networks are on Azure, so they will be treated as VNet to VNet. But if it would be a site to site, I'm going to select a site to site. My Azure to on-premise, Azure to other cloud services are site to site. Are you planning to have an ExpressRoute? Yeah, of course I can go and use it, provided I have an ExpressRoute provider's connection. You can't go and do it over a simple internet. You have to take a dedicated connection, and that connection comes from ExpressRoute providers only. There are listed ISP who can provide you these express routes. So you take a connection from them. Again, the process remains same. You need to create that connection. So I'm going to create a VNet to VNet connection. The first virtual network gateway is the gateway for this network itself. And where is your second gateway? The second gateway is in test RG200. Of course, this is grayed out because a gateway cannot connect to itself for routing. A gateway already knows about its own connection. You are not going to connect East US gateway to the East US gateway again. You need to connect it to the another side of your network. And then you have to give a security key. Okay, I'm going to call it Azure Demo 123. This key is critical because the key needs to match on both the side of your configuration. On both of your networks, this key is going to be used like a handshake key. If this key doesn't match, the connection is not going to come up. So I have my Azure Demo 123. I'm not going to make any other changes into the environment. I'm just going to say, hey, that's it. I want my gateway 1 to get to gateway 2. But just like peering, what you are supposed to do, you need to do the other side of the connectivity as well. So I'll go back to my network watcher. I'm going to change my resource group, and I'll say, hey, there is a VNet 2. I need to create a connection for it. And this is going to be a VNet 2 to VNet 1 connection. It is a VNet to VNet connection. There is a gateway 2 which is part of this configuration, and it has to get back connected to the gateway 1. I'm just creating a cross connection between these two config. And what is my secret key? This is my secret key. Now, in the background, the configuration is happening something like this. I have my 100 RG. I have my 200 RG. It have its own VNet, and there are two subnet. One is front end and one is gateway. The gateway is connected to a gateway device. On this, there are again two subnets. There is one gateway and there is a device which has been created. This is gateway subnets. Okay, this is subnets, this is subnet, and this is the actual device. And by doing this, I'm allowing my VNet 2 to know about VNet 1. And when I did the other side of my configuration, I let my gateway 1 know about gateway 2. And there is a pre-shared key which is going to happen between these two networks. If this key doesn't match, the connection will not come up. They will remain disconnected if you have a mismatch in the key. And that's pretty much. Click OK. Get your connection up and running. We'll wait for a while to do a refresh on this config, and why not to use this time to go and check whether the policies are up and running or not. I hope you remember policies. Few years back, there was a configuration of Azure policy which we did. So let's go back and look whether the policies are up or not. I have policies. The policy should be up by now. The policy is in a compliant state where the policy was applied to my resource demo RG1. And there should be only basic VM types which can be deployed. Let's go and check. Does this policy is actually effective? Is the trainer who was talking about this whole configuration, was he right about the implementation of this service? How you can go and make governance and compliance happen? So I have this demo MC AZ104. I'm going to call it my policy check VM, and I'm going to make a D series VM deployment. I'll just add my username and my password to access this VM, and rest of the config I'm not going to change. I missed something into that password. Let's go and click on create and verify if I'm getting any errors or not. So there is a new user who just joined your company and have no clues about the governance and compliance into the environment. And I think I applied it on a different resource group. Let's go back to the policy and check which was the resource group where we applied it. Let's go back, do a quick check. It says validated. That means my policy is not effective there. So I have this policy available. Okay. There we identified it. It was on demo VNet peering. It was not on the MC104 resource group. So I should be creating my VM in demo VNet peering. Let's do that. Let's do a quick check. Whatever we have learned, we have not learned too much for this particular course, but yes, whatever we have learned, we should be able to verify whether it works or not. Check policy. And I'm going to use D series VM. I need to put a username. I need to put these basic details so that I can verify my deployment. Okay. Great. We match the config. And now let's check. Can I go and do this deployment? Is my company able to do governance and compliance properly? Just look at this information. Validation failed. You are a global admin, but you are not allowed to do this deployment. Why not? Because we identified the resource you are trying to deploy is disallowed by a policy. Which policy? Allowed virtual machine size SKU. If you have permissions, you can click over it and go back and check the policy details, who created it, what is the scope of the policies. If you do not have permissions, I would have created a custom message there. Please contact ranjit@microsoft.com to get permissions to go and deploy this VM type into the environment. You can go and do all that by using the governance and compliance. So I think we are good with this. The policy is applicable. You can have multiple policy being deployed, as well as you can do a cross check whether this configuration is working as expected or not. Okay, so I have just done one policy deployment and we verified that it is working fine. Okay, switch back to virtual networks. Here we go. What we see is it's still in not connected state. Let's do a refresh and you can see the network is going into a connected state. So I'm able to create a virtual network connection. Right now it is on virtual network, but the same process would be adopted if you want to go and do a site to site connection as well. Okay, it just takes time to refresh this config, and probably maybe in next 5 to 10 minutes you will see both the networks are in connected state. So VNet 1 is connected to VNet 2, VNet 2 is connected to VNet 1. You go back to your virtual network config, you go back to your topologies, network voucher, go to your first network, try to look out for this connection. Yeah, just taking some time to refresh, that's it. If this comes in the connected state, that means all my configuration are good, including my shared key. If shared key mismatch would have happened, this network would also be in a not connected state. It just takes time to converge these network together. Okay, so this is what you can go and do in Intersite connectivity. I have shown you two examples right away. For Intersite connectivity, you can go and do peering, and you can go and do a site to site or a VNet to VNet config. And what if the organizations are having multiple types of connections? Obviously, organizations are not going to have only one network or two network or one on-prem or one branch office or something like that. There would be multiple connections which are going to be created into the environment. Are there any service which can help me to go and look at all these network connections at one place to help me to centralize this network config? The service is referred as Azure Virtual WAN. Azure Virtual WAN is a networking service that provides you an optimized and automated branch connectivity to and through Azure. So you may have multiple branches available, you may have multiple network connection types which are available. You can actually go and connect all these networks together by using this virtual WAN concept. This is how it looks like. You are going to deploy virtual WAN, and then You may have some express routes available. You may have some site-to-site connections. You may have point-to-site connections. You may have VNet to VNet peering, which are available. You can go and deploy a service called Virtual WAN and centralize all network management configuration at one place. It brings together many Azure cloud connectivity services and helps you to get all these network connectivity available in one single management pane. Okay, so you do have these services which are available to work into an enterprise grade deployment where you have multiple networks. It may become difficult for you to go and follow along with all the network connection types, all the branches you have connected to, all the peerings you have done. You can go and do that by creating a virtual WAN hub and then associating all your network connection types inside this virtual WAN hubs. But rather than doing that, let's do something interesting, something more end user kind of task, because this is very much specific to the network teams, the network team who manages multiple network connectivity. They will be more interested into virtual WAN. Let's talk about the deployment which we did for a virtual machine. Where is that virtual machine? Let's go back. So I have a demo VM available to me, and I can go and connect to this demo VM by using RDP. If I would have deployed Bastion into my network environment, I could have taken the RDP on the tabs itself. I can go and take the access to the virtual machines directly over the internet browsers. I do not have Bastion service, and this is not something which we are trying to achieve into this lab. We are trying to see how the services can be published and can be controlled into the environment. Okay, so let's go and take a quick RDP for this machine. Let me go and log in inside this. Okay, here we are. So I have this virtual machine available back to me. So I'm trying to log in and it's taking time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look out for a quick install is command. I think some of you may be aware about IIS. IIS is a web server role, a web hosting platform, which you can go and deploy inside Windows operating systems. So I have this virtual machine, and you can see this virtual machine do have a public IP also available. Let's try to deploy a web server in this environment. So you may have a connectivity already been done. You may have peering, you may have VNet to VNet or site to site. And definitely you will be requiring some solutions where you can go and publish services back to the end users. And we are trying to simulate the same environment. We are going to look at some of the application protection services which are available back to me. So here I am, and I'm going to do it with the IIS deployment. Okay, and if it's not visible, let's make it a bit clear. And there is a command to go and deploy a web server role. Now what I'm showing you is being done in most of the traditional website hosting platforms. Okay, you have a server You go and promote that server as a web server by installing roles. Now, if it is Windows, you will be working with IIS. If it is Linux, you may be working with Apache or some other web platforms which are available. But once these server roles are being deployed, you are actually able to host web applications over it. Let's see if we can host a web application or not. Let the deployment gets completed. And this is something which I wanted to show you. I could have deployed a VM with all IS roles and websites and everything. But then for some of you, it may be like, hey, it looks like a magical thing which is happening in the background. So let's go and deploy it from scratch. That was the whole idea, to deploy this VM in front of you, that I have created a VM. I have promoted this VM as a web server, and I'm going to look at this config now. And even before going and checking that config, I'm going to turn off the IIS enhanced security mode. Otherwise, it is always going to prompt me every time I'm going to access my IE. I just closed it, and let's go and do a quick check. Local host. Oops. Of course, I do not have a certificate for this website, so I'm not going to use HTTPS. Neither I'm going to create a self-site certificate. That will be out of the scope for this webinar. But yes, you do have multiple options to go and create these websites, to go and create these secure web applications into the environment, do the IIS bindings. So I have my local website available, and which is actually getting published from this location. I can go and give you a quick glimpse of that config as well. So here it is, inetpub root, and this is the page which is getting published. If I'll go and say I want to open this page with maybe, let's go back and try to access Paint. And I'll say, hey, I'm looking for a file to be opened from this location. This is PNG file. I'm going to open it, and I'm going to label it with, of course, my name. Let's do it a little bit bigger so that it becomes visible to you. Bolder. And this is what we have just customized our website for. And if everything is working fine, I should be able to refresh this, and it's available on the web page. But am I able to create a publicly available website? And how can I go and check that? Having this public IP enables me to check whether this config is available on cloud or not. I'll copy it and I paste that IP address there, and I'll try to access it. But it doesn't look like it's very happy to give me access for that. The reason being, Microsoft creates some restriction over these deployments. out of the box, there are security measures which have already been applied. And in my case, this virtual machine with which I'm working with, this virtual machine have a networking config, and this machine have a port filter which is available. I can go and configure these port filtering based on my own business needs. Right now, there is only one port which is allowed, which is 3389, because of which I was able to take that RDP session. Okay, this RDP session was working because there was a 3389 port which was available. Can I publish this website on public network? Add a port. Source can be any with any port. Destination can be any. I can be very specific. I can go and say, no, not any. I just want to allow this VM only. But let's make a any statement which is more generic in terms of its configuration. And the port number is going to be 80. And I'll say allow HTTP traffic. Add. It's going to take some minutes before this configuration gets applied to this virtual machine config. Inside the virtual machine, I have a NIC card. A NIC card is having a NSG applicable to it. And that NSG is having some rules. Network security group, that's what we discussed, the application security. You have NSGs, you have DDoS protection, you do have firewalls available. There are so many services which are on network to protect your services, to protect your infrastructure, to protect your access from internal networks as well as from the internet based networks. So now I have a rule which allows port number 80 to be accessible with any destination, with any source. I'll go back and say, hey, is it working? Wow. Anyone who wants to check this on their own environment, you can also go and check that. Just look out for this IP address. I just created a website which is publicly available. HTTP 20.102.70.179. That's the IP address of my VM itself. So what I was able to achieve is referred as IaaS based deployment. Infrastructure as a service. Now, having deployed this website on a VM, I have a capability to do all these management, network management, connectivity management, its version management, disk management, size management, security, port, logging, patching, deployment of IIS, deployment of custom site inside it. I'll just go back inside my virtual machine here, and I'm going to replace this website. I don't like that simple website. I already have a template of my website. Why not to go and publish that? Let's try to do that. Where is my custom website? Let me look at, let me find out this. And here it is. Copy. And paste. You may not find that IIS website very interesting, but now I'm replacing that basic IIS website with a more visually appealing website. Okay, looks like the deployment have been done. If you are still checking my website, you can do a quick refresh and see what happened. Does it look like a public facing website now? Does it looks like something which you can go and share with your customers, share with your business partners, share with your uh, potential customers as well? But still, I am having one issue: the DNS configuration. I don't like calling my website with this IP address. Usually, you don't access any website by their IP addresses. You access these websites by using their DNS name. How can I go and do that? I have multiple services to go and achieve this configuration in my environment. I have my DNS management service, which is for this cloudmix.in. I'm going to create a record for this domain name, which points to this IP address. And I'll click save just to make sure there is no spaces. Now I have a domain which I have purchased from GoDaddy. The domain name is cloudmix.in, and for that domain, I just created a record saying that if someone hits cloudmix.in, the traffic should get routed to this IP address. What is the effect of this configuration? If I'll try to open another tab and try to ask for cloudmix.in, now of course this would not be a trusted website. I have not done any HTTPS bindings, but now I can actually share this configuration to my customers rather than an IP based configuration. And this is the same domain which you identified over my Active Directory. So I have this custom domain available back to me, and I have registered this cloudmix.in inside my own subscription. What is the use of this? Now, the identities which are getting created in my environment, those identities will be having this name, which is more professional looking identities rather than having something like this. If I would not have done it, my address would be June 17 Jeff Outlook dot on Microsoft.com. This is how the default Active Directory gets created. But because I use my custom domain in the configuration, I am able to replace this default Active Directory domain with my cloudmix.in. So my identities are using this domain, as well as now I have a web application which is also using this domain name. And this is an infrastructure as a service deployment. What if I want to block this access? Yeah, for sure, you can go and do that. You have your NSGs in place. Last time I went back to the VM and then shown you NSG configuration. Actually, these NSGs are independent configuration as well. I can go to NSG, I can look out for the inbound rules, and I identify, hey, allow HTTP traffic is there, which allows any traffic. Maybe I just don't want to do it right now. Or maybe I want to make some adjustment. I say that only a specific IP address range 12.12.0.0 slash maybe 24. I only allow this specific range to access my website. If I'm going to do this source IP address filter, save, and this configuration gets refreshed, my access to the website will be blocked soon that configuration gets applied. As I said, it takes around 1 to 2 minutes to apply this configuration in the background. But if you are accessing my website, you just wait for 2 minutes, do a quick refresh, and if that refresh still gives you a cached website, because usually your browser caches your website, try to create a new private connection and access cloudmix.in. You will soon be blocked from this configuration. It's not yet applied, takes few minutes, but that's how you can go and take control of your network traffic. And there are multiple services to do this. We are just looking at one of the most basic and effective also. So you have source address, destination address, port, protocol. You have these 5 configuration which you can go and take care into your network security groups. But you can go and deploy firewalls. You can go and do some redirections. You can go and use app gateways. You can do SSL offloading. There are so many services which assist organization to create a enterprise grade solution over these public cloud offerings. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much I wanted to share. With the help of some demos, I wanted to share a small config with you what we discuss in our AZ-104 certification. Okay, so this is what we were able to get some insights on. The identity management solution, the governance and compliance, the Azure administration through portal, through command line, and of course, Azure network services, how to create network, how to do peering, how to do VNet to VNet, how you can go and make some services available over the internet, how you can go and take control of those exposed services as well, applying these configuration at different level. I can go and apply it on network interface cards. I can go and apply the same configuration over the networks as well. So there are multiple ways you can go and deploy these network configs for the security purpose. Okay, so we are not taking any break. Are we taking any break, Leila? Before closing the session, we can go and ask some Q&A.
So yeah, what we will do, if you are finished presenting, are you finished presenting?
Yeah.
Okay, then what we will do is we will go ahead and hear from Mary. She is our product manager. I'm sorry. Mary is our director of vendor and products, and she is going to introduce our promotions and webinar related courses. Sorry, sometimes we have different people helping us out, and I knew that you were not just the product director. Hey Mary, how are you doing today?
Hello, Leila. I'm great, and that was really very insightful. Always a pleasure to hear from Ranjit. And while you were logging in your questions for Ranjit, just like to share with you some resources you have on our website, as well as some promotions, as Leela said, and some more information that was shared to you on the chat. So let me start with, this particular topic that Ranjit discussed is part of a 4-day class, which is AZ 104. And if in case you are interested in attending the full hands-on class, which Ranjit also teaches, please do go to our website or call your learning consultants if you've been working with us, or you can always email webinar at netcomlearning.com. So this full class is instructor-led, it's hands-on. Being a Microsoft learning partner, you also get to use the authorized courseware. And as I said earlier, you have the opportunity to do hands-on, because this is quite fast. It's 2 hours. It's packed full of information, but it's not enough. It's not enough for us to really learn the full topic. Another thing that I'd like to call your attention to is, if in case, I do know that Ranjit mentioned about PowerShell. Also, there are other courses that Microsoft has that you may be in need of. They do have some of the courses such as, PowerShell, some of the legacy courses like Windows Server or SQL Server that may end in December. Please plan on taking them, and we would be happy to share that with you. So say, for example, if you're going through our website, and just an example on PowerShell, if you go to that, click on this particular course, you're going to see here that, this particular course is retiring on December 31st. And this is based on Microsoft's goal of recreating their courses based on job roles. So they're improving the content of the course so it'll be more effective and useful for you. So that's one thing. Another one that I also want to share with you, just in case, I see that some of the participants are from our corporate customers. Just in case you still have your software training vouchers that you usually received when you purchase your licenses with Microsoft. This is going to sunset actually end of January. I'm sorry, end of June. Okay, end of June. So that's this month. However, you can still take the courses until the end of December. So there's a lot of information here. Feel free to download our SATV handbook so you have a better idea, and get in touch with your administrators at work so that you can fully take advantage of that benefit that you have. Okay, another resource that I'd like to share with you, going back to this, is about our roadmap. So going back to the Microsoft page, as I said, AZ 104 is only one of the courses as in the Microsoft portfolio. So if you go and open the certification poster, I know that this is small. Let me just zoom in. You can see here under Azure that you can actually follow the roadmap. So wherever you are in your journey, in your learning journey, you can see here that there are fundamental courses. So say, for example, you're on the infrastructure side, you start off with the fundamentals, or if you are on data and AI, we have an AI fundamental as well as a data fundamental. And as you progress, you will see here that these are specialty courses. If you're moving SAP workloads, etc., you can see here that the associate level, which AZ 104 is part of, there are different courses based on your job role. Normally, some of the customers that are already administrators or who have taken the AZ 104 will normally take the architect, wherein there are 2 courses, AZ 303 and AZ 304. Or if you wear several hats and security is part of your role, they also take AZ. 500. I know there's a lot of this to digest, so we would be happy to help you in terms of putting together a learning roadmap for you, so you know how to get from one course to the next. And this will help you with being efficient with work. Now, going back also, um, there's one more thing. I know that in last few webinars, we have folks from the Army who are also, they have benefits. Just in case there are some of our participants here know that there's also a program from the Army, which is the Army Credentialing Assistance, that we can help you with. So please just get in touch. This is the page that you go to for more information. Now, going to some promotions, I invite you to go and check all the various promotions that we have for you. We have a lot of free training that we have created exclusive from NetCom. So if you're into cybersecurity, AutoCAD, we also have a super saver for Microsoft fundamentals as well as AWS, because we want to make sure that we help you kickstart your learning. There's also ITIL. And then maybe some of your folks are using Dynamics. There's also with that, and very hot is Power Apps training. And there's a lot more that you can find here. So please visit this page. And there's lots of schedules. In case you want to enroll, just go to the schedule. But the easier way is you can always contact us, and we'll make sure that we have a learning consultant answer all your questions. Leela, thank you so much for giving me this time. I know that there's probably a lot of our participants who are itching to ask some questions to Ranjit.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. If you guys have not had a chance to put yours in, it's not too late. Go ahead and pop those into the question panel. I'm just going to share my actual screen now. So let's see. Our first question today is they wanted to know what you were using for your whiteboard. Ranjit, are you with us?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I am with you. Just wanted to unmute before I speak. Yeah, so it's a hardware actually. It's a Viacom device which I'm using for whiteboarding. So there are two ways. One is the hardware, which is Viacom device with pen and pad. And then there is another utility which I was using for marking over the screen, that is referred as G-Link. So these are the two programs which are available. One is a hardware, one is a software, which makes this more effective.
Wonderful. I love finding little special tips and tricks of the trade. Let's see. So they're wanting to know if we can put a PDF in the chat. Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't all the slides and handouts like in the handout section, or?
That is correct. So it's all in the handout section.
Okay.
Yes, that you can download.
And they also wanted to know if there is any demo for DP 203.
Right now, there is none, but however, whoever are interested in DP203, please email us so we can get back to you, and we'll make sure that the right person can, show it or answer any questions that you may have. I think that is the easiest way.
Wonderful. Well, let's see. Our next question we have is, how can I estimate the cost of resource deployment?
Yep. So for that, you have a tool referred as Azure Pricing Calculator. You just need to give a quick search. Just type Azure Pricing Calculator. It lands you over the Azure website itself, where you'll be able to select the resources which you may be interested into. Maybe you want to have two different VMs and one database, and maybe like monitoring services and something like that, serverless architecture. You can go and do a quick selection of the type of service and the configuration of the services based on your own custom requirements, and the pricing calculator gives you a monthly estimation of the cost for that service. Now, just remember, it is an approx figure because there are some under the hood services which you are going to use into the environment, some storage and networks, and which are going to be consumed, and they are going to be billed as well. But yeah, you can go and take a approx cost estimation by using the tool referred as Azure Pricing Calculator.
Wonderful. That sounds like a very effective tool. Let's see, our next question is regarding system security updates within Azure. Are there automated settings or automation settings available for granular date and time deployments?
Yes, you do have that. You have a Azure automation account, which is available through which you can do the patch management. If you're basically referring what I believe is for the infrastructure as a service, you may be interested into having multiple endpoints available back to you. So there are two different ways you can go and do the management of that. If it is only about the patch management, inventory, and something like that, you can go and use automation. If you want a proper device management solution, so you may be opting for Microsoft Intune, which gives you more capabilities in terms of endpoint protection.
Amazing. Let's see. Our next question we have is how does organization or how do organizations plan for migration to cloud?
Yeah, so this is what I was referring in my discussion as well, that there will be two scenarios where the organizations are going to opt for the cloud. One is they have something which is new. They want to just start from the cloud. They want to build something from the cloud. And second is they have their on-prem infrastructure up and running, maybe the local data centers or something like that, and now they are planning to move that to the cloud to get the best out of that cloud technology. So in terms of Azure, we have a tool referred as Azure Migrate. This is also one of the service. So in case you get some way out to get hands-on practice over the Azure, you can always go back and take the Azure free subscription, which comes with 1 month validity, $200. And Azure Migrate is the service which is used by most of the organizations now. Earlier, we used to have third-party tools as well, but now the same capabilities are available for the off-the-shelf tool, which is available from Microsoft. Azure Migrate for infrastructure as a service, and DMS, Data Migration Assistant, DMA and DMS, which is specifically designed for data migration solutions.
Wonderful. I love how thorough and detailed your answer is. Let's see, our last question that I'm seeing right now, and if anybody has any questions, now is the time to pop them in, because once we get through them, we pretty much will just wrap up. The last question I'm seeing right now is, how can I explore more on Azure offerings?
Yes, so as I said, that you have options. Go back to any browser, go and search for Azure free subscription. When you go and do that search, you go back, it takes you back to the Microsoft website, and you just need to provide your credit card details. It's not going to deduct anything, just for the verification. It's like a prepaid account, so nothing gets charged out of your credit card till the time you do not allow it, till the time you don't subscribe to that service. So if you're going to create that free Azure subscription, it's going to provide you $200 credit to go and explore the services over the Azure portal. I'm using a similar subscription as a learning partner. We use Azure Passes, which provides us $100. But if you're using your credit card based Azure free subscription, it's going to provide you $200 for 1 month, so that you can go and not only play with the free tiers of the applications, which have very limited functionality, but that $200 credit allows you to go and explore the paid services as well, so that you can actually get hands-on over the paid or the premium services, which are actually available from Microsoft to their tenants, to their clients, to go and optimize their workload into the environments. So $200 are free. That is for 1 month, and then rest of the services which are in free tiers, you can go and use those free tier services for 12 months.
Let's see, going back, sorry, our next one. Going back, what was the markup tool name?
This was G-Link. Let me just G-Ink. So if I'm not sure whether I will be able to, it is G-I-N-K.
Okay,
G-Ink.
wonderful.
It's a open source tool. So you don't have to go in any licensing for that.
Wonderful. And I think the next question is more for Mary. Are you still with us, Mary?
Yes, I am.
They said, today I'm using a pay-as-you-go plan. If I decide to commit for 1 year or a 3-year subscription, should I add additional VMs afterwards? Is the counter reset when the new VMs are added?
Leela, it would not be for Mary, it would be
Yeah,
for
Oh,
me.
it was, okay. I thought they were talking about our subscriptions for our learning credits.
yeah.
Probably it is for the Azure subscription. So right now, if you're using pay as you go and you want to do some reservations, then of course you can go and do that depending on the type of subscription. You already mentioned it is pay as you go. So you can go and do the reservations, and the reservations are going to provide you some discounted rates based on 1 year and 3-year reservation, which you can go and opt for reserved instances basically. So that is going to discount the rates, and it is going to get your on a pro rata basis. So as you start working with those services, it's not something which you get in advance. It is on the pro rata. As you consume those services, they are charged with those discounted rates.
Okay, sorry, I was really like my brain was thinking they were talking about our NetCom subscriptions on that one. Let's see, our next one is, how do you merge or migrate Azure tenant? We have separate tenant, and would like to merge them together.
So usually, most of the organizations which have multiple tenants, I don't think you'll require something to merge. Basically, they should get aligned under one account. And the reason to do that is to get more benefits in terms of costing, in terms of billing, which you can go and get. So you can go and align these resources under one account, which is going to provide you more cost benefits.
Wonderful. Let's see. They are really interested in this G-Ink thing that you use. Is it just like gink.com, or is there a specific website for that?
Let me look out for
If you
that.
can put that, if you put that into the
I
chat,
should start getting
then
royalty from the software provider now.
right. Yeah, if you put that into the chat, then I'll just pass that on to them. And then our next question is, why Azure and why not AWS? And when do we use Azure versus AWS?
This is something which I'll leave to the participant. It's like you go and buy a car, and which car you go and buy, it's all based on your own personal preferences and uses. Okay, this is very subjective, because in the trainings also we get the same question, like you are talking about virtual machines, why not I should go and use EC2 into the environment, because EC2 is also a virtual machine, but it is on AWS and it costs less and something like that. So every cloud have their own pros and cons. Okay, so you get your hybrid benefits on Azure, you don't get those hybrid benefits on AWS costing for some of the services can be comparatively low in Azure, based on what type of subscriptions you are using on Azure, and what is your license agreement with AWS. So this is very subjective. The choice of services, the the expertise which comes into your IT, the service selection which is going to be done based on your current workloads, and then every cloud provider have their edge over some of their proprietary solutions. Okay, so rather than discussing it over the open channel, I would prefer to do it inside the class. that makes more sense and doesn't looks to be offending some other cloud technologies. So yes, there are cloud technologies. You have some of these technologies which are very parallel to each other, so you can go and opt for any of the cloud provider and you get the same functions and features. But then you have to make sure that you understand your own license benefits, you understand your hybrid benefits, what are reserved instances, which location your users are, which type of workload you are planning to migrate, uh, what is your current system, what are your plans for the target system, how many services you are going to plan for the integration into the environment. So I think it's more open-ended question. We can go and talk for that around hours on that topic. So let's close that saying that every cloud have their own offerings, they have their own pros and cons, they have their own uh, specialty in some of these services. So you have to analyze your current workload, you have to analyze your requirement, map it to the cloud provider, and then make a choice.
Well, I love that. You don't buy a two-seater sports car if you need a minivan. Like, you really
Yes.
do have to cater these things to your specific needs. So I
And
wouldn't be
even the
getting much
color
of
matters.
anywhere with my kids in a sports car. Um, Wonderful. Okay, so I've got, I think, one more question before we'll wrap up today. They wanted to know the credit offer in the slides, is that for Azure?
uh, which credit offers on the slide?
I'm not sure. Maybe that's something Mary was talking about. I'm not positive.
If we can just check whether it is from the instructor slide or is it from the NetCom Learning resource. There are two handouts which are available in this webinar. If in my slide, I'm pretty sure I have not talked about any credits. So maybe they are referring to NetCom Learning resource handout.
Maybe.
If
If you can
if we can get that
clarify that,
clarification,
that
yeah.
would be great. And they were wanting to know if there was a certificate for today's session. Mary, was there a certificate today?
We're gonna have to check on that, Leela. Let me check with our team, and we'll certainly get back to you all on Monday. I just
Okay.
don't want to, commit and then but I'll definitely, if there is, we'll definitely get back to you all. And one more, Leela, I think for the DP203 who was interested in that, that class, the earliest class that we have, just to clarify, is in August. DP203 is new, and they are optimizing the labs because this is a huge lab because it's combining two courses. So as you email us, we can explain further, but there is definitely a class that's running in August.
Oh, okay. And the previous question about the credit offer, they did clarify. They said how to find the credit offer, not the learning credit, but the test environment.
Oh, I think that's the one, Ranjit, that you may have mentioned about, for them to get like the Azure Pass, they just need a credit card, but it won't be charged. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So if you are planning to get your hands dirty with the labs, then this Azure Pass is something which you will be requiring, and Azure free subscription. I'll just put these two links. Free account. You just
And
need
if
to give the credential. You just need to share your credit card for the verification. It's not going to be charged anyways. And based on that verification that you have a valid identity and a credit card, you are supposed to get Azure Pass subscription. So, Liza,
and
if
and
yeah,
I'm sorry, Ren. And if they want to have an idea on the amount that the budget, right? If they're only putting a certain workload, they can also do that in the Azure calculator, right? So they have an idea of what's the cost involved on that particular workload.
Yes, that's correct. And once you have your free subscription activated, you can go back to the subscriptions and you'll be having a full invoice of how you have consumed your credit from the subscription.
Okay.
So these are the
Okay.
two links I have shared over the chat. If you want to pass it back to the participant,
Okay,
the
I
two
will
links
just
are
put
one for
that.
the Azure Pass and one is for the tool which I was using, the G Ink.
I'll just put that to the entire audience so anybody could grab it if they wanted. Okay, well, with that being said, we are going to go ahead and wrap up today. We're going to launch a quick poll to find out how many people might be interested in taking some additional training. Thank you, Renji. Thank you, Mary, so much for joining us today. I know we covered a lot of information today, and in addition to today's webinar, we have a lot of informative webinars coming up and other events. So please go to www.netcomlearning.com/webinars to register for any of those. We want to thank you all for joining us today. If you do come up with any additional questions or need a little more clarification, please feel free to send them to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. And we hope you all found today's event to be informative. We really look forward to seeing you back here with us very soon. Please feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our events, webinars, and other courses. And once again, we want to thank you all and have a wonderful Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you.